Hey, thank you all again for being here. Thanks for being patient with us. And again, I really do appreciate you all being here today. Today's City Council meeting, we took steps to further develop our city in a more equitable and sustainable way. First, we approved the appointment of Sierra Boatwright as the city's commissioner for Department of Planning and Development. Commissioner Boatwright was formerly the vice president of real estate and community development at CRG, Clayco's Real Estate, and an investment arm where she oversaw high-impact developments. As a Chicago native, she knows the landscape of our city, and of course, she understands the unique nature of all of our communities. She understands the current state of economic development, affordable housing, and most importantly, I believe, job creation. With this experience, Commissioner Boatwright will work with my administration to promote inclusive, equitable growth throughout all of our neighborhoods. I'm honored to congratulate her and officially welcome her into her role as commissioner. Today, she had her husband and her children with her today, and again, a remarkable testament to who we are as a city. Together, we are going to create more affordable housing, commercial real estate, job opportunities, and economic growth for our amazing city. Today, we also introduced the Clean and Affordable Buildings Ordinance, which will position the city to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and create significant public health, economic, and climate benefits for all residents and businesses in the city of Chicago. This ordinance is bold and it is achievable. It is one of the most important policies that we can pursue here in Chicago to reduce our climate change impact, and it's focused on new buildings. This ordinance will improve the safety, comfort, and health of all who reside and work in our environment throughout the city of Chicago by phasing out or replacing fossil fuel burning equipment in buildings or major additions covered by the ordinance. We're also going to alleviate the energy burden for Chicagoans who struggle with high utility bills. It's going to catalyze a workforce and economic opportunities in the clean energy economy. And it will enable Chicago to maximize federal funding for clean energy and climate mitigation efforts through the Inflation Reduction Act. Not only is this ordinance an important step towards a resilient future, but by reducing our reliance on combustion of fossil fuels, we will alleviate health and financial burdens of Chicagoans, especially our lowest income and vulnerable neighborhoods. Natural gas bills are unaffordable for many of our residents, and we are increasingly learning about public health risks and complications from the indoor combustion of fossil fuels for cooking. So this ordinance is a step forward, and we have to take it. We have to do it for our people. We have to do it for the planet. I'm committed to an ongoing dialogue with all stakeholders to ensure no one is left behind during this transition as we move away from fossil fuel use. Chicago has a long storied history of leading on clean building policies that improve energy efficiency and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Chicago will continue to be a leader in this important work and demonstrate to the nation how to best build with sustainability and, of course, with equity. I look forward to the passage of this ordinance as well as the benefits that we will achieve in our city. So thank you all again. Appreciate you all's time. With that, I'll take some questions.
Hey, Mayor. I have two. Do you support the ceasefire resolution that's going to be voted on?
Well, as I said before, from the very beginning, the violence that broke out several months ago, I condemned the actions of Hamas. But at this point now, I believe we're looking at 25,000 Palestinians that have been killed during this war, and the killing has to stop. So, yes, we need a ceasefire.
And then, we're 2 months since Alderman Ramirez-Rosa stepped down as zoning chair. Why have you not named or, given your input for a successor? And do you think there's a path for him to stay on as zoning chair?
Well, I have given my input. I'm having conversations all the time, and that decision will be made soon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you talk a little bit about the decision to table the police matter today, the arbitration? What would,
Yeah, it's going to go to committee. That's a normal legislative process.
but the president of the FOP was expecting a vote today. He says that the city is now violating a court order by not having a vote today. Is this a matter that's going to be dragged along, or is this something the city's going to take a stand on, draw a line in the sand?
Well, we've already taken a stand on it, right? This will be the second time we're going to vote on it, so this is not new. Look, relationships between policing and residents, I'm working very hard to repair those relationships, and it's important that we have a transparent process. I've said from the very beginning, individuals and police officers who are accused of some of the most heinous acts or of misconduct, that the public deserves an opportunity to see how that process proceeds. Anything less than that it's not transparent, and we already know that a couple of administrations ago you had information that was not made available in the Laquan McDonald shooting, and that caused tremendous strain on police and community relationships. I've worked very hard to try to repair and rebuild. Anything short of our work to repair and to rebuild to have constitutional policing is a step in the wrong direction. So this is going to go through the committee process like most legislation does, and the people will be able to have their debate, and then we can make a decision from there. But thank you.
Hey, Mayor. The city has now pushed back the 60-day shelter limit for migrants twice to February 1st. Are you considering revoking the limit entirely, or is February 1st the firm date for this first
Well,
one?
the impetus behind the 60-day notification was really based upon the full collaborative approach that we have taken from the very beginning since I've been in office, the county as well as the state. The state of Illinois made a commitment to building a landing zone, a MARC, a multi-agency resource center, and the work that the state has done to resettle families, it's been an incredible heavy lift. I believe we're upward of 10,000 families that have been resettled, but the flow of migrants that are coming into the city of Chicago and the flow to exit, that it has not kept up. And so one of the reasons why, compassionately, we have provided some exception and some exemption because, again, what the state committed to doing back in November, that process has not moved as quickly as this, of course, policy will hold. So, we're going to continue to review. This is an evolving crisis. And we have to be nimble and flexible enough to make sure that all of our efforts that we are moving in the right direction, that when there's a particular jam, that I do my part to at least respond to that challenge.
In the process is the resettlement being overseen by the state that you mentioned. That's not moving fast.
Well, look, they've resettled 10,000 families thus far. And as you know, the governor of Texas is still sending buses all over the region. Right, and so the state has worked with Catholic Charities. They've worked with New Life to try to help resettle families as fast as possible, but it has not been able to keep up with the influx. And so we're going to continue to work with the state and the county to ensure that this crisis is met with the full capacity of every single level of government.
Speaking of the state, as you may have heard, the governor the other day said he's very concerned about the city not opening up any new shelter beds. And in terms of the state opening up a shelter with the $160 million that they've allocated, they said they're just waiting for the city to tell the governor said he's waiting for the city to tell him where to build one. So can you respond to that?
Do you have a question, though? I want to make sure.
I mean,
so
if you can respond to what the governor said the other day about being very concerned that the city is not opening up any new shelter beds. And in terms of the state, he said he's waiting for the city to give the state a plan on how to spend that $160 million. And at this point, do you think there is a disconnect between you and the governor when it comes to the migrant issue?
So I'll answer that question. Look, we are speaking to the state and the county every single day. This mission wouldn't be where it is today if we weren't speaking on a consistent and regular basis. Now, the state has received a number of locations that they can build a shelter at. I know that the state has been in conversations with the Archdiocese, and so I know there are sites that are being considered there. And, again, just keep in mind that the state of Illinois can build a shelter anywhere in the state of Illinois. Right? So, the state does not have to build a shelter in Chicago. In fact, if you all recall, before I was sworn in, the state housed roughly 2,000 families in hotels all over the region. And I know it cost tens of millions of dollars, but they did it for at least 5 months. So there are sites that are available that we have spoken of, and I know that they are in conversations with the Archdiocese. And, again, the state has the ability to set up a shelter anywhere in the state as they choose.
Hello, Mayor. It's kind of a two-part question. Let me just ask the first part first. During the discussion today about the Holocaust Remembrance resolution, there were some disruptions. Alderwoman Silverstein said she was disappointed. Were you disappointed in the way people treated that moment, and should the disruptions have happened?
Look, disruption should not happen under no circumstances. The city of Chicago has experienced a great deal of debate over the course of decades in this city. That there's really strong opinions and emotions that are attached to a variety of matters. I have offered up, I believe, in an incredible amount of patience. I try my best. It's one of the fruits of the Spirit. You went to Sunday school, so I know you know all 7 of them. And so, as much as I recognize that people should not disrupt and should be respectful of all voices that are being heard, democracy still prevails today. And that's important, that even in the midst of, very, very strong and rigorous debate, that even when people feel attacked, we don't have to panic. I don't.
Thank you. And just to follow up with the ceasefire resolution, there were 28 older people who had sent that letter to Rosanna Rodriguez saying, please delay this. It seems like as she's working to try to change the resolution, that there still might be significant opposition that would not result in the resolution getting supported. Have you spoken to her? And if so, what have you said to her about how this resolution should be changed or crafted and whether she should bring it up next week?
Well, look, again, I'm a very strong proponent of democracy. So, I believe that, the public space is where we should have these debates. It's healthy. When Alderwoman Silverstein had a resolution several months ago, I encouraged her to have a conversation with her colleagues. That's what I've done in this situation as well. Keep talking to each other. That's one of the challenges that we have in this country. We don't speak to one another, not enough. And then when we do, we're simply bringing our biases to the conversation. So, maybe it's a little bit easier for me because I'm one of 10. So, listening to people is not an arduous task, but I'm grateful that the Alderwoman heard from her colleagues and has made a commitment to continue to work on it. And that's the leadership that I've brought in this position, to continue to ask people, to continue to work with people, bring folks together and to see what we can do to come to some consensus. And if there are people that are still not satisfied, then, people have they have their prerogative.
Hi, Mayor. How are you?
Good. I'm well, thank you.
In New York, about 23,000 migrants have reached the city's 60-day shelter stay limit, and it's led to a number of people sleeping outside. How do you avoid what's happening there from happening here? And I do have another question.
Yeah, by continuing to work with every single level of government, we're continuing to work with our mutual aid, our community organizations, our philanthropic community. As you all know, I stood up 27, 28 shelters, educating 5,000 plus children. CDPH is working on the ground for infectious disease control, health screenings. We're providing. Essentially, you have local municipalities that are holding federal responsibilities. And, this is unprecedented. I just want to make sure that we continue to lift that up, right? I mean, you have this international federal crisis in which local government is being asked to subsidize. And what I've done, much to maybe some people may have disagreed with my approach, but at one point we had 4,000 people in police districts. We cleared that up. We continue to decompress our airport. Again, this policy was really attached to a larger operation that included a landing zone, a mark, as well as 2,200 beds. That's what the state of Illinois committed to doing. And so we're going to continue to work with every single level of government. But it's a mission, of course, as I've said, the city alone cannot do it. It's not sustainable. I've been saying that. And the federal government, Congress has to do its part.
Mayor, on a lighter note, I know you're a Cubs fan. I'm a Sox fan. Tell us everything you know about the White Sox interest in moving to Southfield and who would pay for the roads, the infrastructure, the sewer, and all that.
Yeah. Somehow I thought you were going to ask me to give me some Sox trivia, which would have been very difficult. I just want to clear something up. It was on Channel 44 growing up. And the games were on at freaking 9 o'clock at night. You could never get them in clear. I'm just saying, versus 1:20 in the afternoon, WGN, and that's not a shameless plug, by the way, for operation. So I've had really good conversations with the leadership with our sports. So a really good conversation with Kevin Warren and the Bears. My conversation with Jerry was very positive. One of the things that I did appreciate in their presentation is that what they're considering, it's the way new stadiums should and could look, that they have community benefit. As far as the intricacies and the details, Commissioner Boatwright, we got a little work to do, but these were conversations that were not happening before. And I just hope again that this is yet another display of my leadership. So it was a very strong presentation. I will admit to that. And we have not gotten into the intricacies and the details just yet. There'll be time for that. Now, I don't know how patient Sox fans will be about a winning record, but that's another conversation.
Thanks for that.
Hi, Mayor. I'm curious about what the future holds. Congress seems unwilling to act on additional federal spending to address this. You and the governor seem sort of at odds publicly over how we should approach this. The city's spending millions each month addressing this crisis. What is the plan going forward over the next 60 to 90 days to the people who are in these shelters face the real threat of being out on the street?
I don't know if I would characterize it that me and the governor are at odds. Look, this is an enormous amount of stress for the entire country. It's not like the migrant crisis is only happening in the state of Illinois or the city of Chicago. It's happening all over the country. Quite frankly, it's global. I mean, the European Union, it took them 3 years to negotiate a deal to figure this out for the entire region. The only reason why I'm saying that is because I just want to make sure that we have full, broad context. That I know we like to live in our sort of isolated bubble, but as a world-class city, that is not how my leadership functions. And so Congress does have to act. You're right, and it's been difficult. It's been difficult not just for this crisis, but for funding in general, right? The president spoke with him last week, spoke with his chief of staff, spoke with several secretaries, and there are other ways in which we are figuring out how to get appropriations into cities. The second point, though, is that I've been working with cities around the country and around the region. As many of you all know, that I've had several meetings with mayors around the state of Illinois. Before Christmas Eve, 80 people on a call. We had the executive board of the Metropolitan Caucus just a couple of days ago, and all of them will go back to their respective spaces to bring the message so that we can move with some expediency. But to the last part of your question, what do we do in the meantime? We continue to do what we've been doing, is providing shelter, providing health care, educating people, providing them with transportation, resettling them. Do you understand, though, that this is unprecedented? I don't mean to bore people, but I'm a social studies teacher. The last time something like this of this magnitude happened was Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam, where you had the International Resettlement Committee working to coordinate massive migrants and asylum seekers from those respective countries, and it took them years, 21 years, to come up with that type of operation. We're talking about millions of people. 15,000 people in the city of Chicago, 35,000 total have come through here. And we have literally built, check this out, the city of Chicago has literally established a migrant resettlement. That is unprecedented. Now, I know folks may have questions about my style, but don't question my leadership. Because we've also put $250 million into the unhoused, $100 million for violence prevention, reopening mental health clinics. So even with some tensions that exist, and they will arise, that's natural, because we're all pressed to figure this out. And so I'm glad that we do have partners at the state. We have partners at the county level. We're going to continue to work together, daily conversations to meet this need in this moment.
Just one quick follow-up on that. Is there, I just want to be sure clear, is there the threat that the February 1st deadline could be pushed back? Or I guess I'm curious, because
No, look.
Spending millions and millions. Are we
Say that last part again. We are what?
We're spending millions and millions each month. Are we going to continue to do that, or do these people face an imminent threat of being left on the
Well, I have a budget for $150 million. So we're going to do that. That was open and transparent. Just like there's an entire website dedicated to the spending of this mission, we have emails, weekly meetings, monthly meetings, everything and anything that has been expressed in this moment, you all have had access to it. Most of the times I gave it to you. So, look, President Preckwinkle, she's committed $100 million. You know, she went before her body. I went before my body, $150 million. Governor, the state of Illinois, you know, they have an appropriation, right? You know, and we're going to do everything in our power, just like I've demonstrated so far, to build a operation that's centered around people's humanity. That's the goal. Do you ski, by the way?
ski, snowboard?
I knew it. We talk about that later. I'm sorry. All right.
Hi, Mayor.
Hey.
If the city's not opening additional shelters, will the people who are not given an exception to stay in shelter and have to leave on February 1st be relegated to warming buses? And what's the backup plan if there aren't enough warming buses to house those people? And I have one more question.
Okay, can you repeat your three questions before you get to your
My
fourth
question
question?
is, will people who are forced to leave shelter on February 1st be relegated to warming buses? And what's the backup plan if there aren't enough warming buses to house that population?
Thank you very much for repeating that. The state of Illinois committed to 2,200 beds. We could really use those right now. Now, I know the state of Illinois has offered up $40 million for municipalities outside of Chicago, and no one took them up on it. The state of Illinois has offered up another opportunity. I believe it's for $11 million. I don't know if any other municipality has taken them up on it just yet. We're going to work really hard to continue to find as many options as we possibly can so no one has to be out on the street.
Obviously, the ceasefire resolution is non-binding. What effect do you want this to have on the Democratic Party, particularly with the DNC coming to Chicago this summer? What effect do you think that will have on the conversation of the DNC, if passed in Chicago?
You know, I'm not sure what impact it will have on the Democratic Party. I'm more interested in the impact that it's going to have on the lives of people who have been lost. Look, I mean, it may sound like an anomaly here, but I know I'm a politician, but I'm not thinking about the politics right now. I know this is a political problem, but there are some people who are working hard every day and they fight to be relevant. I fight because I want to save lives. You know, I wish I could give you maybe an answer to what impact it will have on other people who make decision. What I can say from a very personal note, I know that for Black liberation that we have had to make statements that maybe not in the immediate, it had an impact. But I'm not mayor of the city of Chicago if people weren't pushing the government to recognize people's humanity and understand the value of what liberation, what it means for people groups and for nations. And so in this instance, people should be liberated. And I hope that other people follow suit if the city council is in agreement with my particular position.
Hi, Mayor. On the arbitration agreement, why allow the arbitration agreement to be divorced from the rest of the contract and, agree to those big raises for CPD members before locking down police board authority?
You think the raises were too big?
I'm just wondering, can you speak
No,
to
but you said they were big raises.
They're significant raises.
They're
yeah.
significant. And, okay. It's good to know your opinion. I believe that people who work for the city of Chicago, that their work should be honored. Now, whether or not, other people believe that they were big or not, that's just one reporter's opinion. I believe that people deserve to be paid well to live in the greatest freaking city in the world. And we have to have transparency and real police accountability. Those are two separate issues. There's worth and pay and value, and then there are instances that require transparency, particularly if people are being accused of egregious misconduct. Do you know the history of policing in Chicago, and particularly the impact that it has had on Black people? I can tell you it's pretty harsh and severe. In fact, I believe that we are a lot closer to creating better relationships between law enforcement and the community. And if the community can't trust or experience what has historically been severe breakdown in community trust, then a better, stronger, safer Chicago becomes threatened. I got elected to build a better, stronger, safer Chicago. And under no circumstances should we veer off from those aspirations.
But do you think divorcing the arbitration agreement from the rest of the union contract maybe will jeopardize that goal of transparency rather than using the contract as a bargaining chip to ensure
All right, so you're talking particular strategy. Well, I've already made our decision. If you want to know, it sounds like you have paid attention to strategic decisions and how contracts are played out. How can I say this as emphatic as I want to? I am working hard to separate political agenda from hopes and aspirations that people have wanted in this city for a very long time. You're right, that could have been a strategy. But the people of Chicago did not elect me to behave the way other administrations have behaved. They wanted something different, and they got something different.
Mr. Mayor, as a
Hey, Mark.
Hi, thanks. As the son of a social studies and history teacher who taught some 40-something years in the CPS and who had Dr. King as his commencement day speaker in 1958, I had a little sidebar with Commissioner Boatwright, is it? I'm going to make sure I'm getting it right, about her planning to sort of circuit ride around the different neighborhoods to find out what our needs were. And I was just curious as to what that specifically is going to look like. And would that also include a plan for traffic safety? Because we've had two major incidents that have affected the 21st Ward. On the weekend, I believe it was Sunday, there was a fatal hit and run that took the life of the Cook County Hip Hop Olympics champion. He went by Trey as Dope. I think his last name was Hal. I can't remember his first name. And then days after that, there was an incident where a 13-year-old girl got hit by a squad car, CPD squad car, in I think it was the 600 block of 103rd Street.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Look, traffic safety is, it is the problem has gotten worse. It has. And as more people ride bikes and walk, it is incumbent upon my administration to develop and build neighborhoods that are conducive for all modes of transportation. Now, as far as what it looks like, Mark, I'm committed to organizing. It's right in the neighborhoods. And Commissioner Boatwright, we're built the same in that regard to make sure that we're hearing directly from people. You've heard Alders testify today that she's already hit the ground running. My recommendation is, Mark, you might have to catch up with her. All right? Thank you for that question, though.
One quick follow-up question.
All right, quickly, Mark. Okay.
After her education and research, child research committee gathered out, I had a brief discussion with Jeanette Taylor about a meeting you all were supposed to have afterward to clarify what this community school plan was all about, because she said she was blindsided with that, like she said she was with the whole migrant thing going on in Wadsworth. And so the question that everybody's asking is, what is that going to look like?
Yeah.
Are we talking about schools at the same level of excellence, or schools at the same level of mediocrity?
No, it's a good question. Look, the number of children who have applied for selective enrollment and other options, that number, is pretty much on par with, previous years. What we have to do as a city, we have to commit ourselves to making sure that every single child has access to high quality education. And as you know, Alderwoman Taylor and I, we were hunger strikers, so but we know this in a very personal and intimate way. As far as the next steps, absolutely, we're going to continue to have meetings, not just with City Council and the Education Committee, but also working with our Board of Education, because it's imperative upon us that we cannot allow for excellence to be only defined by a handful of schools. Because that in and of itself is inequitable, and quite frankly, it's been very hard for working people in the city to have a neighborhood school that is close, that's attached to the neighborhood, and that we don't have to deal with the pressure of trying to get your child in a specific exclusive community or school. I'm confident that we can build an education system that speaks to all of the needs that our families have in the city of Chicago, and we don't have to pit any neighborhood or any type of school against another. Every single child deserves a high-quality, functioning education in the city of Chicago, and I'm committed to doing that.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon.
In terms of the unspent money the state pledged to help with the migrant response, are you concerned about you and the state not getting on the same page about who should, pick this location, and this money is just kind of, sitting there?
Well, I can tell you, money won't be wasted in my administration. We're going to spend it. All we're saying in this moment is that the city of Chicago, we've appropriated $150 million for this mission for this fiscal year. I did not receive, that when I was sworn in. As you all know, the previous city council only appropriated, I believe, $5 million for this mission. What we are all on the same page about, what we're clear about, is that as a state, we have a moral responsibility to make sure that these families that have, experienced a great deal of turmoil, and that, quite frankly, these families who are being used as a political weapon against democratically ran cities, that we cannot permit and allow that type of chaos to disrupt our operation. And we're working hard every day to coordinate, to come up with a structure that works for everyone. We've been doing this for the last 8 months. We'll get through it over the next several months, and iron sharpens iron.
To follow up on that, I was thinking, more specifically about the $65 million that was supposed to be spent for the Brighton Park site. It's now it's just sitting there, and I know there's, this standoff over location. But are you concerned that as there's fiscal constraints and more buses are scheduled, that this money should be spent sooner?
Do I believe that money should be spent sooner?
$65 million that the
This-
state is saying we're just waiting for a location.
The state has locations that have been recommended. The state has been in conversations with the Archdiocese. And I don't know how else I can say this. There are 1,300 municipalities. Now, I'm leading and I'm moving. And before I was mayor, the state of Illinois housed conservatively 2,000 migrants in locations even outside of Chicago. Shelters do not have to solely be set up and built in the city of Chicago. The state can do it wherever they want. New York has done that. Massachusetts has done that. The state of Illinois had done it. So I built 27. And look, I know how hard it is to build a shelter. I know. It's not easy. But yet we've managed. We have an incredible team of people who have worked hard to do it. So I hear your question, and I just want to be emphatically clear that there are recommendations. Those conversations with the Archdiocese are ongoing, and the state of Illinois, as it has done in the past, like other states, if they so choose to build a shelter outside of the city of Chicago, they certainly don't need my permission to do that.
Hi, Mayor. I'm Jake Sheridan with the Tribune.
Congratulations. Is this your first one?
This is my first city council.
Come on, y'all. Give them a hard time. The first question you have to ask me like something like a real softball question.
Sorry.
All right. Let's see what you got. What college did you go to, Jake?
Well, there's a group of 18 aldermen
What,
behind
you want to say what college you went to?
Oh, sorry. I went to Duke. Sorry. You said
Ooh,
college.
Duke. All right, let's see. Let's see what Duke has produced.
All right. Well, there's a group of at least 18 aldermen behind an ordinance requiring city council oversight of federal COVID funds. Do you support that oversight of your office, and especially as it pertains to migrant spending?
There is oversight. The fiscal year 2023, the city council appropriated, I believe, $152 million for federal dollars to replace dollars that focus on city operations. And in fact, I believe it was in 2022 or 2021 where the city council gave the authority to the budget director. We worked within the structure of the policy that the previous city council provided. In fact, I took it one step further. I actually went to the city council and explained to them and told them what our intentions were, even though the process didn't require that. Look, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to know as much information as possible, because the more information that we have, especially from a global perspective, it helps us come to stronger conclusions. The city council voted for that particular appropriation, gave the authority to my budget director, and then I went back to the city council and actually gave them the heads up of what my intentions were, even though there's nothing in that particular structure that called for me to do it. But I think it's important to include everybody in the conversation, and I will continue to do that. Nice job, Duke.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Monica Eng with Axios Chicago. I went to Lane Tech and University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I've got a two-parter. First, we seem to be dancing around this. You recently met with a lot of regional mayors. Did any of them show any serious commitment to opening a shelter in their municipality?
I don't understand what you mean by dancing around it.
Well, we've been talking about other mayors could do it. Have any of them told you, yeah, we'll do it?
So I don't know if I've been dancing around that. The state of Illinois has offered up $40 million, and no one took them up on it. They've offered them another $11 million, and no one has taken them up on that. It's not even a dance. You actually can see that they have not taken the state up on that operation. What I've said is that we need a coordinated response from our region. That's what I've said. What I've also asked for is that we work together challenging federal government to do its part. I've asked them to do that, and we're still working through that, and there are a number of people who have committed to signing on to this letter. But as far as me determining and dictating what other local municipalities do, of course I'm not going to do that. And there are some that have taken up this operation, right? At least a couple of towns have tried their best. But again, this is not designed for local economies. It's just not. It's not. And so, no, I hope that some villages do take the state up on its offer. And we offered up a template that they can use as a model, but the city of Chicago, 35,000 migrants, 15,000 of them are in shelters right now. And we have not even put a cap on that. Comparatively to the entire state of Massachusetts, that is over 2 times the amount of our city, they have capped it off at 7,500.
Okay, quick follow-up. Cam Buckner said that we should say no way to the DNC if we don't get more federal funds. What do you think about that?
I think that those are 2 separate dynamics. Whether you have the DNC coming to your town, the DNC is not going to New York. They have just as much of a right to the federal funds as a city that will host a DNC. It's 2 separate concerns. You can hold the DNC in the city of Chicago, and we can push Congress to do its part. But it can't just be about the city of Chicago, you all. That's all I'm trying to express, you all. That if we make this just about the city of Chicago, we are missing it, you all. This is an international global population shift that is here. And so I get the proclivity to want to have a hyper-concentrated focus on just what's happening in front of us. As mayor of the city of Chicago, I have the responsibility to have a broad global view. So I respect Representative Buckner. He's a good person, and I'm going to compartmentalize both of those.
Hi, afternoon, Mayor. This is on the Clean and Affordable Buildings Ordinance. I know that it's mostly targeted at new buildings, but as provision of the ordinance does mention that if sizable additions are put on to existing buildings, they will have to retrofit. Can you justify why that is in this ordinance, and how is the city working to make sure that if this does pass, that those costs to retrofit for existing buildings are manageable?
So we're working with everyone. Every single stakeholder will, as they've always had in my administration, an opportunity to express their perspective. And climate change is real. That is the justification. It's real. Now, the benefit of the city of Chicago is, in our region, 20% of the world's fresh water is right here. The city of Chicago historically has always been on the cutting edge of being forward-thinking in terms of how we build infrastructure and how we build economy. This is an opportunity not just to address climate, but we can build an entire economy around it. I don't want people to have a petite focus. I want people to have a broader perspective. It's important. And I'm a good listener. I am. I really am. Take me up on it one day. I'll just listen to whatever you want to say.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi.
I went to Kenwood Academy, if that
Come
counts for
on,
anything.
yes. Oh, Broncos.
And Northwestern, I guess, but that's less interesting.
Okay.
On February 1st, as many as 1,700 children now living in the city shelter could find themselves evicted, potentially disrupting their schooling. What provisions will you make to address those children and that population? Or do you anticipate them having to go back to the landing zone along with single men and women?
Yeah, that's a good question. Look, the impetus behind this policy is attached to what the state of Illinois indicated, back in November. And as I articulated, there's just been a slower out migration element, and 10,000 families have been resettled. So I know the state is working hard to do that. No, of course I don't want to disrupt lives. You know, there are no easy answers to any of this. Everybody's dealing with this around the country. And I believe Denver has a 14-day policy for single men, and then the 37-day policy for families. As I said, the state of Massachusetts has a cap on how many migrants for the entire state of Massachusetts. You know, we have been incredibly bold in our attempt to build this operation. You know, so you know the initial desire for the state of Illinois to provide 2,000 more beds. I know they and have the CVS shelter that's functioning. You know, that's a step in the right direction. But you know, the policy in of itself, just bear in mind that since we've implemented that policy, you know, 1,100 families plus have migrated out on their own. We had people in our shelter from 2022. There were 50 or so still left. I think we're down to 4. So part of this is also to help, you know, encourage migrants to do what they have been doing and demonstrating a great amount of resilience and drive, you know, to find and experience a better life here. But we're going to continue to work with the state of Illinois, and we're going to do our very best not to have those lives disrupted, particularly because 53% of students that we are educating that are migrants are 3rd grade or younger. So I'm very sensitive to that, but thank you for raising it.
Earlier this week, I reported with my colleague Jared Rutecki that there is a number of police officers who have been the subject of repeated lawsuits claiming misconduct that have cost the city nearly $143 million over the past 4 years, including one officer who was named in a wrongful convictions lawsuit, as well as 5 others in the past 4 years, costing taxpayers $260,000. Why is that officer still a detective earning more than $125,000 a year? And how can the people of Chicagoans trust that they would be treated fairly with someone with that kind of record?
Yeah, you know, so I'm not, you know, privy to that particular specific matter, but I am obviously aware of the larger systemic challenges that we have, and that's why, you know, going back to an initial question of why it was important to separate the two, wages, you know, versus, you know, how we not only investigate, but who gets to have access to that information. The more we continue to uncover, it demonstrates why we need real constitutional policing and police reform. But again, on that specific matter, you know, I'm not privy to all of those details, but I am very much committed, as I've said repeatedly, to having a police force that serves and protects and does it constitutionally. But I'm happy to continue to work on that because it's important for the people of Chicago.
And good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to ask another Cabo question about the phasing out natural gas. A lot of emphasis has been put on the price and for consumers, but I think consumers who look at their electric bills are probably not seeing, you know, low prices either. How do you assure people that they're not trading one, you know, exorbitant bill for another?
Yeah, look, you know, all of our utilities, quite frankly, has caused a great deal of pressure on working people. You know, what we are seeing, particularly as we work to implement this ordinance once it passes with newer construction and larger scale buildings, we're doing that intentionally because it's going to give us the opportunity to get a better understanding of the impact that it's going to have on newer construction and in larger commercial buildings. And that's why there's some room before we actually start to get to households. Did I get that right, Angela? Close enough?
And also
come on,
efficiency
Angela.
First,
come
right?
on.
I think that's the other important thing, right? Is that this is paired with the Energy Transformation Code that was just passed, right? So it's a focus both on electric, or you know, building zero to low emission technologies, as well as energy efficiency, which is another important piece here, right? We don't want to just trade one energy source for another, we really want to focus on the whole building envelope as well, right? So ensuring that we have the right insulation, that we have the right technologies in our building to make sure that we're creating a whole home impact here.
And how does this whole, and either one of you, how does this play into the franchise agreement? At some point, ComEd is going to have a monopoly.
I don't know if I'll go that far, but go ahead.
Yeah,
yes.
I wouldn't just frame this as just a electric versus gas situation. I also think, and this was intentionally done so that it was fuel neutral. That's very important here because we need to leave the door open for emerging technologies as well. There are zero to low emissions technologies that are coming online. We have a very exciting pilot project in the Woodlawn community that the city is a partner on, that labor is a partner on, the community organizations are a partner on, to look at geothermal as a possibility for the city. So I think that there are some other technologies that will be made readily available to consumers in the future that we need to look forward to as well.
Thank you.
Hi, Mayor. Can you tell me when was your last one-on-one, just the two of you, conversation with the governor, and what did you talk about?
I actually don't remember the last one-on-one. It was before the holiday, and we talked about a number of things. We talked about our role collectively for the DNC. We talked about the migrant, mission. We talked about our families. He's got another child that's off to college, so I'm monitoring mine closely. I'm not sure if I'm wanting my children to go that far. I don't know about Northwestern, but maybe UIC. No, in person. We had breakfast.
And then, can you be a little bit more specific about that Bill Conway measure? So, what is your take on whether the City Council should have oversight or be involved in discussions about oversight for the COVID money, without talking about what it might be spent on, whether it's migrant or whatever, but should that federal COVID money have City Council oversight?
It does have City Council oversight. This is a matter of whether or not I get to spend it. It's not about oversight. They do have oversight over it. They're the legislative body. They're the ones that actually gave the executive office the authority to spend it. I call that oversight. I don't know everyone's motivation. I can only speak to mine. And I did what the law permitted. The law that they passed. So my question would be, why is there an individual that's working to circumvent a law that was passed? They have oversight. I have a fiduciary responsibility to do right by the taxpayers. And like any other executive, so this is not about oversight. This is about whether or not I get to fulfill my responsibility as an executive. We have budget hearings. We make appropriations. Hundreds of millions of dollars every single day that they have oversight over because they actually get to vote for the budget. And then there's the legislative branch of authority that they make law. I got elected to enforce it. That's all I'm doing. That's my constitutional right, and it's my constitutional responsibility. Thank you all very much. Happy New Year.